Hi, I'm Euan.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is
Popcorn and Cumin, a transatlantic dive into film and media.
with a healthy side of unrelated nonsense. Hello and welcome to Popcorn and Cumin. This week is our Halloween spooktacular episode. So we've released 2 episodes in the build up to spooky season, and will spooky season continue after this episode? Who knows? But this week we're discussing the 1990 something classic.
I think it's 1993.
1990, that's why I said 3. Classic movie, Hocus Pocus.
Ooh.
This was voted on by our loyal fans,
Yeah.
our loyal and lovely fans.
It's the People's Choice episode.
Yeah. Did either of us vote for this?
I did.
Okay, well, there
I
you
love
go.
Hocus Pocus.
Well, I also liked it, but I thought there was some strong movies. Well, actually, with the exception of maybe Halloween Town, but...
What? Take it back.
I won't.
All right. Well, before we get into that, we have to do our cross-border factoids.
Yeah, Sarah remembered the name of the segment this week. We've only done it 100 times at this point.
Not 100.
Yeah, well, we're getting up there.
For our new listeners, we are going to discuss one difference between the US and the UK.
And so Sarah is an American expat living in London with me. I'm also here.
Scottish expat.
Yeah, exactly. An export in some sense. So Sarah's differences typically are more observations from her daily life as she goes about her living in her little world, and she experiences
My little world.
your big world, big world of big
you.
dreams. And she experiences things and thinks, this isn't right. Not based on my upbringing in the United States of America. Whereas I have been to the States, quite a few times in the past couple of years. So I try to experience and think of differences while I'm there, but they don't often come as close to hand as me. So sometimes I have to just sort of pull things out of the air in some ways. So my difference today is inspired by I'm now training to become a solicitor in the UK. And
Wow.
yeah, that's a attorney for the American listeners. Kinda, I think. I don't know.
Lawyer.
Yeah, of sorts, yeah.
Attorney, yeah.
Soon it'll be my turn-y. So one of the things I'm studying on at the moment was just the judicial system of the UK, particularly England and Wales, which is not really a refresher for me because Scotland has a different legal system to England and Wales, so I'm learning some of this stuff for the first time. Anyway, the age of retirement of judges in England and Wales is 75. Now, this is a difference to the US, where there is no age of retirement for judges, and of course, that can lead to a problem when it comes to the separation of power and the way that particularly judges are appointed to the Supreme Court, and how political and politicized that can become. Whereas I think, in a society, we should respect that as people age, people should at some point be able to retire. And for positions that are particularly stressful and challenging, perhaps we shouldn't be encouraging people to work until the day they unfortunately pass on to another part of their spiritual journey through the universe. That's just my opinion, though. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if not in the Supreme Court, I have a gap in my knowledge of the retirement age of judges. I don't know if not in the Supreme Court, if there is a suggested retirement, or I feel like it's less of a lifetime commitment, but I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. I don't think that the Supreme Court should be... It's less of I think that they should be forced to retire early, and more of I think that I don't know why every other important government position has term limits in the US, but Supreme Court judges don't, because I feel like that then leads to an imbalance of power, and there's not enough changeover, and it just as we've seen in recent years, I feel like it just becomes a big mess. But we don't want to go into politics and all that on this podcast. But
politics and cumin, that's the spin-off coming your way soon.
But yeah, I guess I agree with a retirement age limit. I just think that people should retire. Stop working. I'd like to retire now. I'm 27.
Well, us lawyers, we just love the law so much, it's hard to let it go.
Not every lawyer I know thinks like that. All right, well, that was an okay difference.
Thanks.
5 out of 10.
Aww. I didn't know we were scoring these. Okay, well, you better be coming up with some good stuff here.
Oh, well, I have a good one, but I think it'll take too long, so I might have to save it.
Okay.
So I'll do one of the simpler ones.
Okay.
In fact, this one is very simple.
Okay.
There should be zero discussion about this.
Here we go. I'm ready.
In the United States, we call stuff ground meat. So ground beef, ground turkey, etc. In the UK, this is called mince beef, or right? Minced or mince?
Yeah, mince. Yeah.
Turkey mince. Oh, it goes after the word, right? It's like
Yeah.
turkey mince, beef mince.
Pork mince.
Yeah. But then there's a confusing thing where mince meat means this weird, like, fruity compote thing.
Compote.
And so they have mince pies that are these, like, mini fruity pastry things that have mince meat in it, but the mince meat is not meat. So why is it called mince meat?
Yeah, I have to say I do agree with this, that is confusing and sort of silly, because you could quite easily have a mince pie that is made up of actual meat.
Yeah.
In terms of what you would say, like beef mince or
Because meat
steak
pies
mince.
are a thing.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, like a Scotch pie has like minced mutton in it, I think.
Yeah. I feel like I read somewhere, or maybe actually I'm mixing this up with Rarebit, but I thought maybe I read that, like, in the olden days it was harder to come upon meat, so they wanted it to, like, almost imitate meat so that people felt like they were still, like, eating meat even if they couldn't afford it or something.
Yeah, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, definitely meat was something that, like, the peasant folk wouldn't get to eat in serfdom in feudal United Kingdom, or even prior to the United Kingdom existing. That's why there's a difference in the words in English for pork versus pig, and
Yes.
so we don't need to go into that this time, but
That had more to do with the ruling class being French, right?
yeah, it was the French ruling classes that were eating these animal products. So then, for when the animal product was presented as food, it was the French word being used, whereas when it was the animal being treated as an animal, it was the Old English word. So there you go.
There's some more facts for you.
Yeah, but that's a different cross-border factor.
Yes.
Of sorts.
Well, and now the mincemeat, my conjecture about that being because they couldn't afford meat. Now, that is just me throwing spaghetti at a wall. I don't know if that's actually true, and I don't know if that's
Don't
even
admit to
a
that.
saying.
Just throw stuff at the wall. And
I
people
feel
won't.
like I've heard that. Rumor has it. But speaking of going back a few hundred years ago, our Hocus Pocus story starts in the year of 1693, I think.
300 years before the movie was released. They must have planned that.
Is that what I said?
1693.
1693. I am pretty sure that's what I just said, and I would be correct. So, going into Hocus Pocus, it's Halloween, October 31st. 1693, and the Sanderson sisters are accused of being witches, and they are hung. So this, I
They were
believe,
hung, they weren't burnt.
Yeah, they were hung. Oh.
Wait. Actually, they weren't hung, they were hanged.
Oh. Is this something you've just made up, or is this?
No, this is a real thing.
But are you saying that the past tense hung cannot ever be used, or it is not used in the sense of executing people?
It's not used in the sense of executing people. It'd be the wrong descriptive word.
Why?
Because it's you are hanged by the
language.
neck till death. That's how the language developed. A painting was hung on the wall, but a person was not hung on the wall. They were hanged from a gibbet, I think that's called.
You mean the gallows? Is the gibbet part of the gallows or something?
Yeah, maybe I meant gallows. Maybe a gibbet is a piece of an animal.
All right, well, while you look that up, it is a common misconception.
Gibbet is correct. Please go on with your common misconception.
Wait, what do you... Oh, you're thinking of a giblet that you remove from the turkey before making it.
That's what I was worried about getting confused. But gibbet, a giblet is distinct from a gibbet, and a gibbet is part of a gallows thing.
Part of a gallows thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to your comment about them being hanged. It is a common misconception that witches were always burned. I think that maybe happened more in European witch trials sometimes. But in the Salem witch trials...
This is New England, baby. We've abandoned Europe.
In the Salem witch trials, the witches were hanged. Nobody was burned.
They're sometimes drowned as well. Duked in water. I think that's the Scottish term for it.
Maybe in England, not in Salem.
Oh, no, probably not. I don't know, maybe.
So I believe that the Sanderson sisters are then kind of supposed to be part of the Salem witch hunt. And so I thought I would give a quick summary of just what happened during the Salem witch trials. So in 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, well, there was like a village, there was Salem Village, and there was, I think, Salem Town, which was the richer people, and Salem Village was the poor people. And it all started when the Reverend's teenage daughter started having kind of a fit. So these two teenagers had like a weird convulsion thing. And then basically they said that this was because that they had been cursed by a witch or something. And then around the town, other mainly teenagers started becoming afflicted with this like weird convulsion thing. And people started accusing other people of being witches. Bunch of people got accused, and let me look at the numbers here. Between February 1692 and May 1693, more than 200 people were accused of being witches. 30 of those people were found guilty, and 19 of them were executed by hanging. They were hanged, and 14 of these people were women, and 5 of them were men. There was an additional man who was not hanged, but he basically...
A male witch?
Maybe just consorting with the devil. I don't know. Is witchery only female in the Lord's eyes?
Yeah. It seems like the sort of gendered terminology that one might think of, well, how it's used, for instance, in Harry Potter, is you have witches and wizards, where wizards are male and wizards are male, and witches are female. But I don't know if my understanding of that is completely taken from Harry Potter, which was quite formative in my development of language.
Yeah.
I feel like witches are sometimes there's more of a kind of evil connotation and more of like an occult-y devil.
Yeah.
Whereas wizards are more like guys who wear pointy hats with long beards who maybe are doing good things to help people. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that, at least during witch trials and such, obviously the word witch was associated with, the devil and all that jazz.
It's probably worth pointing out that the witch hysteria is not something that's unique to Salem, and particularly because Salem is made up of, at this point, European settlers, maybe first, second, third generation European settlers. Witch hunts and things of that nature were rife in Europe in the 17th and I think even 16th century. James I and 7th of Scotland, the first king to unite the crowns in the UK. One of his big things was he said, I have to get rid of all these witches that exist in the UK. Now, this was in like the 1500s and probably killed a load of people who were not witches. So good job, mate. Thanks for the 7th James of Scotland, King James of Scotland, and the 1st of England. Probably a bad guy, probably a bit of a nutter in today's metrics. And for anyone interested in seeing a film about 1630s New England colonial witch hysteria, there's the film The Vivitch or The Witch by Robert Eggers, and it's very good. I'd recommend that.
There you go. Yeah, but I think that this is one of the only instances in, quote unquote, American history. I know it wasn't quite America yet, of a large-ish scale witch hunt, and it was like so contained, and it was considered like one of the few instances of like mass hysteria is how it's often described. And often if you were accused of being a witch, one way to get yourself off was often, all right. One way to get away without being hanged was to accuse someone else.
It's a good system,
being
really.
A witch. Yeah. And even if you admitted to being a witch, then they like under duress would force you to kind of like name other people. And I think that some of the men that were executed, I don't think they were necessarily accused of being witches, but I think that it would be like if their wife was a witch or something, then they were considered to have been like, I don't know, aiding and abetting a witch. But yeah, I think that a lot of the people accused of being witches, there were some very, very young. Like I think the youngest person accused of being a witch was 5 years old. There were a lot of children and teenagers accused of being witches. There was definitely at least one instance of kind of an older woman who was considered to be like kind of a grumpy old woman, which I think would be the closest kind of to our Sanderson sisters. They're not necessarily old women.
Kind of like a Queen from Snow White type of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the Sanderson sisters, in general, kind of witch hunts, I think that they would have been at risk for being kind of the odd ones out, refusing to marry, which we see more of in the second Hocus Pocus, and being just kind of like these weird, quirky, single women.
Yeah.
What do you call them? Old maids.
Spinsters. It's interesting what you're saying about how Salem is kind of one of the only examples of there being this like prominent like witch hunt in America. But I know you studied like the Crucible in high school and how that's a play about the Salem witch trials, but is often sort of seen as this, I don't know if allegory is the right word because it's kind of like a retelling of a historical thing that actually did happen, but used as like metaphorical analysis of like the Red Scare with regards to the sort of fear and fear-mongering around communism and Russian spies or Soviet spies in the US post or during and post World War II.
Yeah, and this idea of basically to make yourself look not guilty, accusing other people of being like communists and stuff was similar to the Salem witch trial.
But it is an interesting point where two very, societies set apart by hundreds and hundreds of years with vastly different understandings of science and technology, but the same base human emotions remain prevalent around paranoia and fear and trying to protect yourself. And I do think that's an interesting and compelling thing. But it does kind of go to show like you could see why that would spread so quickly amongst like a small community. Maybe it would have spread further if such a thing was happening in a more developed time where there was easier access to communication and the world felt a bit smaller. But probably Salem, to get anywhere from Salem, it's going to take you like a day's ride on a horse or something. So
well, and people were accused outside of Salem, but they were always brought back and like tried in Salem. And I mean, the trials were complete shams and were like you couldn't have representation, and anyone could provide spectral evidence that they had seen your like spectral figure conducting evil deeds or something, even if you were literally physically seen to be somewhere else. And it was there was a big rivalry between two families, and it was a lot of people accusing people like who they had beef with, basically. So it was a big old mess.
I'm just reviewing my legal notes here, and I can see under evidence there's subcategories: admissible evidence, inadmissible evidence, and spectral evidence. So I guess maybe it does have some sort of legal bearing.
Yeah, well, that is when the accusations and stuff, when they started realizing, oh wait, maybe like this, what we're doing isn't really a good thing, is when they started like deciding that spectral evidence couldn't be used in court, like couldn't be used as evidence of someone being a witch. But anyway, you didn't come here to hear all about the Salem witch trials. You came here to hear about Hocus Pocus.
Well, but interestingly, Sarah, Hocus Pocus kind of like leads me to believe that maybe they were doing the right thing hunting down those witches, because there was clearly witches that amongst them.
Yeah, well, this is a thing that I've been thinking about lately, because there's quite a few things, like even just really recently, that surround kind of Salem around the time of the Salem witch trials, but having it be from the point of view of people who are actually witches, which there's kind of two, well, okay, let me give some examples. So like Agatha All Along, we're watching now, and her original coven, I think, was in Salem. They were
there's definitely some sort of link to Salem.
And I just read Wayward by Amelia Hart, and that also involves that's actually not specifically in Salem, but it's implied one of the characters can practice kind of a nature-like magic, but she is accused of being a witch. So not necessarily specifically Salem, but there's a lot of media material out there of women accused of being witches who are actually witches. And I have there's two schools of thought.
Which type of witch is best?
Sanderson sisters. So I'm basically in two minds about this. On one hand, I do think that there is, and often these stories do try to do this, there is some kind of empowerment of these women like being witches and actually being able to kind of control their surroundings more than they would have actually been able to in the time that it takes place, since, they were not actually witches. Like, I do think that there's some empowerment in that and them having some kind of agency in that. But on the other hand, it does give more credence to these absolute, like, awful, idiotic people, often men, who were carrying out these trials. Not that it was only men accusing people of being witches, but they were the ones that were, trying people. Yeah.
Until they were accused, and then they were hanged.
But it gives them, some kind of, like, is credence the right word? Justification?
Yeah.
When really they were just, these poor women were just women who maybe were slight outcasts and were basically killed for being outcast women.
Yeah. I mean, you could say, to raise the counterpoint, that they successfully managed to get rid of all the witches, and that's why we have no evidence of witches existing today, when we have more scientific methods of being able to prove the existence of witchery. But no, I do agree it is an interesting dilemma, because it's not like these works of fiction are really, they're kind of co-opting the history as a way of kind of grounding the fiction they're trying to tell, and make you go, ooh, Salem, I know about that. That's kind of cool. They're linking it back to it. But then you're like, well, you're in some ways making light of the like atrocities and the murder and horrific treatment that these innocent people, we think, experienced. Even though, it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but that doesn't make it like it's just okay. It's still horrific.
Yeah. But you don't think that in some ways it also empowers them? Or you think...
Empowers who?
The women back then. I don't know. Yeah. It's like rewriting history to give people more agency, but I guess to explore that in a fictional sense. I
think probably the way you could do it would be if you were to write a story where you have, like, there is a witch, right, in Salem or whatever, but she's a good person, and she does things to like help people, and she would presumably be living this life, a kind of recluse, or having to like hide her powers of witchery. And then she is, this would then go into kind of alternative history, but then sort of takes it upon herself to right the wrongs that are being done to the innocent women and, sometimes men or whatever in Salem, and sort of take the, if she goes on a revenge sort of crusade against the lawmakers or whatever who are hunting these witches down or whatever. But
well, don't anyone steal that story idea. Well, okay, you say that it would be a good version of rewriting history if they were going around town doing good witchy deeds. Well, that is certainly not what the Sanderson sisters are doing. They are eating your children and sucking their souls to stay young forever.
Yeah.
So that's why they're justifiably hung at the start of this by the actually in real life Puritans. And right before they're hung, she does a little spell, using her book. And this spell means that somehow their essence, the Sanderson sisters' essence, is preserved. Yeah, they make a real fast Horcrux. And then 300 years later, 300?
Yep.
More than that.
No, exactly 300.
300 to the day is where our real story begins.
Mm-hmm. Just to add to the Sanderson sisters' rap sheet, they also turn a boy into a cat.
Oh, yeah. No, they've got a lot of different magic they can do, because they have a spell book, so the sky's the limit. Interesting
with the movie is the sort of tone. The Sanderson sisters do kind of, I would say, on a sort of like oscillating, I don't know what the follow-up word would be. Like a sound wave. They kind of like bounce between being actually quite menacing and also completely comedic idiots.
Yeah.
Like almost within like a second of each other. I like the kind of actual real menacing threat that they pose, considering it's a kids movie, and it is like I could see kids being, genuinely kind of scared of them at points, but then also it's kind of like, well, they are idiotic, especially two of them. But
which two? Oh, not the leader.
Yeah.
Not Winifred.
Yeah, Winifred's kind of... she's still a little Dumbo, but she's... or dumb. I don't know why I said Dumbo. But she's got at least a couple of neurons firing in that brain.
Yeah, she's so funny. Yeah. I think Bette Midler is like the perfect Winifred. They nailed it.
Yeah, she got a set of pipes on her as well.
Yeah? Well, I think she's a musical person, isn't she?
I believe so.
Is. She's alive. Okay, so we have Bette Midler playing Winifred. We have Sarah Jessica Parker playing Sarah Sanderson. What did you think of her?
Yeah, she was kind of interesting the way she's played, because she kind of has this flirty like sexualization to her, but then she also kind of seems as if she's like high all the time, like she's totally like spaced out. But then she also, as I was just saying, loops into that menacing mode at points as well. So I thought her characterization is kind of strange, but was good. I mean, I feel like they did a good job in making the three sisters like clearly like distinct from each other, but they could have maybe, I feel like they gave all of the competency to Winifred, whereas the other two don't really have that.
Well, in terms of their kind of purpose as witches, Sarah Sanderson is the one, she has this like power to call all the children. She sings her little enchantment song, and then all the children walk like zombies right into their clutches. So I think that's what she brings.
That's her secret power, yeah. I mean, she most of the time just seems like she's kind of like along for the ride. She's just like, yeah, well, whatever. I guess we're doing this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But she's kind of in her own little world.
Yeah, I don't really like... I'm not the biggest fan of her character. Like, I like all three sisters together. I think that they work well together, but I'm just not a fan in general of characters that are just like, their whole personality is just, oh, they're dumb.
Yeah.
Like in Mean Girls, there's like Karen's whole thing is just she's stupid, and then that's supposed to be funny. But to me, I'm just like, well, that's...
Yeah, and that, as like Friends goes on, that's what they make Joey sort of turn into. He becomes like a kind of caricature. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and she's blonde, so perpetuating the stereotype.
Yeah. I mean, you just assume that.
Stop. Okay, so those are two of the sisters, and then we have Mary Sanderson, played by Kathy Najimy. I think that's how you say that.
Okay, I believe you.
What did you think of her?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I liked her. I mean, I feel like she maybe has like the least
personality.
Yeah, like she's kind of still a bit kind of like bumbling, maybe not to the same extent. Like she's not high or have that sort of kind of spaced out ethereal sort of nature to her like the Sarah sister has, but she also isn't like competent in the same way Winifred is.
Yeah. I think her role in the group is supposed to be kind of grounding one. Like, I think she's supposed to be the most practical. And I think we learn a bit more about them kind of in the second one, but I don't really remember it. Like, they have scenes as when they're children. Yeah. And I think that kind of is where they establish their roles in the group. Yeah. I always thought she was a bit... Like, I couldn't, quite nail down Mary Sanderson's kind of personality was. The actress said she played it like she was a bloodhound searching for the children or something, which could be where that walk comes from. You know, the back and forth
the Sanderson walk, yeah. That's
where they're kind of like sniffing the air.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can kind of, like, now you've said that to me, the imagery that's conjuring up, I can kind of attach it to her performance in the way I'm thinking of it. So, but I do think, like, you kind of have to take them together as the package.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't remove, well, I mean, maybe Winifred by herself would be okay, but the other two would be struggling without some more characterization as if they were the sole villain.
And I think that the actresses all work. They have good chemistry. They all work together well. Apparently Jennifer Lopez auditioned to be Sarah Sanderson.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think she's that great of an actress, so I'm glad.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, Sarah Jessica Parker was... Like, the only other thing I really know her from, not that I've seen it, but is Sex and the City. But I don't know if this was pre-Sex and the City or if, like, during its run, maybe she was seen as a financial get because she could draw people to the box office. However, that would not have worked out because I believe this was a bit of a box office bomb when it came out.
Hocus Pocus was?
Yeah, and has since, through home media and maybe just a sort of critical reappraisal, become more of a cult classic. I think, like, it's interesting, you know, like, it clearly became a cult classic to the extent that it became commercially viable for them to do Hocus Pocus 2. And I think Hocus Pocus 2, I mean, it was released directly to Disney Plus, but it wasn't like, you know, a classic made-for-TV movie, which is made with on a budget of like a pack of chewing gum and some shoestrings. Yeah. It was good, and I think it must have done pretty well because I'm pretty sure they greenlit a sequel to Hocus Pocus 2 very quickly, which I think they're currently working on. So.
Well, they got to do it quick because those Sanderson sisters are getting up there.
Yeah. How many times can they be vanquished and come back? This is getting ridiculous.
So then we have a few kind of childish actors. We have Omri Katz playing Max Dennison, who's the protagonist of the movie.
The hero.
Yeah.
He has a bit of a Luke Skywalker kind of feel to him, I feel like, especially in like first Star Wars, where he's quite like doe-eyed and like...
whiny.
A bit, yeah.
But you said I was going to take the power reactor.
Yeah, that's nailed it.
Apparently, Omri Katz, he was 16 at the time. And apparently in an interview he said that he had just discovered marijuana and that he was actually high for a lot of the filming. But the director, like, figured out that he was high and then, like, yelled at him and was like, "Are you high? Why are you missing your marks?" And then he said that that was the wake-up call he needed.
Wow.
But I don't know if he actually was woken up and actually stopped doing pot. And apparently, when in the classroom scene at the beginning of the movie, when the teacher is telling them about the tale of the Sanderson sisters, Max is doodling on his notepad. And apparently, he doodles the Grateful Dead with a cannabis leaf above it.
Cool. What a cool guy.
Yeah, and he's wearing a tie-dye shirt, and he's from California. I feel like very stereotypical.
Yeah. I mean, they slide California a bit off in this. How does that make you feel as a Californian?
Enraged.
Yeah.
No, because isn't he from SoCal?
Yeah.
I think he's from like LA or something.
Yeah.
So they're very
We don't
different
count
from
them.
us. So I thought that his performance was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think compared to, like, one of my comments when I was watching this, I didn't know at that time the full history regarding the film's release, etc., which I now know. I know the full history. But I wasn't sure if this was, like, a made for, like, a Disney Channel movie or something, because the production quality generally, I would say, is much, much higher. So if it was a made for, like, Disney Channel movie, I would have been like, wow, this is like, they've got, the kid actors are actually good for the most part. The guy who plays Thackeray is a bit ropey, I think.
On that, I think I figured out why he's ropey.
Okay.
They thought that Sean Murray, who plays Thackeray Banks, they thought his voice sounded too modern. So they dubbed someone voice acts him like as the cat and as himself. So I think that might be why
They Zephron'd him.
Yeah. Well, the Zephron is only for the singing, because I feel like it's even weirder with voice acting. Like, I don't know many other instances where that happened, like where you can actually see the mouth moving. I know with Darth Vader that happened.
Yeah, the guy playing Darth Vader didn't know that was going to happen.
I know.
He only found that out when he saw the movie.
Sad.
What a kick in the guts that must be.
But yeah, I think that might be part of the reason why his acting seems a bit bad.
Even with the cat, like sometimes when the cat's speaking, I mean, obviously in many movies when they have animals that are talking like humans, because animals don't have like mouths and jaws that are designed to speak in such a way, sometimes it looks a little bit weird.
Definitely.
But I thought in this it looks especially weird, so I wonder if maybe they like had synced it up or whatever to emulate the original actor speaking, and then they like had to like dub it over and it didn't marry up correctly.
I wonder, yeah. I think in general though, because he's CGI I mean, they do use a cat for some scenes where obviously where he's not talking, but
The one when they get flattened, is that a real cat?
no, they said they used a mixture of a fake and real cat for that.
What?
But they just cut to a real cat, cut away to the bus, and then later cut back to a flattened pancake of a fake cat that they then like inflated like a balloon basically. Which, yeah, I don't know how good that looked. Because you say that you thought that the production quality was good and stuff. I think that the sets and the makeup and the
Acting?
special effects are okay, but the CGI, is it always CGI?
I don't know if it would necessarily have been CGI, because that stands for computer generated imagery, so I don't know, like back
So
then.
the practical effects were good, but all of the digitally imposed effects I thought looked very bad.
Yeah, no, that's true. I feel
Even for the time, I think they were bad.
Yeah, like, I'm just trying to think, like, some of the spells they cast, when you compare that to, like, Palpatine's lightning in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, because she does lightning as well.
Yeah, it doesn't...
It just looks so bad.
And this would be over 10 years after that. Well, around 10 years after that. I would echo that. Well, for instance, a Disney Channel movie I was thinking of, Sarah, is your beloved Camp Rock, which I feel like the production quality on that is like not great in comparison.
No, it is really good.
Acting not great.
It's really good.
Yeah. Acting not great. A lot of weird scenes where just random things are happening. Extras who aren't very good at acting. You know, it's...
Well, the production quality does go up a lot in Camp Rock 2. I'm not saying that the script or the acting increases in quality, but the production value does.
Yeah, fair enough.
So take that. Okay, so then we have Max's younger sister.
Yeah. Her name's like Danny or something like that.
Danny, yeah, who is played by Thora Birch, who I thought, like, as far as kid actors go, I thought she was pretty good.
This is what we should come up on the fly, right? the scale of kid actor performances. So probably right at the top are
Well, I know what you're going to say.
Macaulay Culkin
Yep.
and the kid from The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
So those are like the very top. Where are we placing Jake Lloyd as Anakin Skywalker in Phantom Menace?
Oh, well, I feel kind of bad.
I don't think he's as like bad as people make out. But like I don't think he wouldn't be at the bottom of all time kid actors, but more like he'd be in like the lower percentile maybe.
The
Like,
bottom of all time kid actors has to be Northwest. Is that her name? In The Lion King live.
yeah, no, that is
Musical.
shocking.
That look up Northwest. What is her full name? Northwest? Is that it?
Who knows?
In The Lion King, it is just she plays young Simba and has zero stage presence and just it's very bad.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the bottom, I would say.
Yeah.
This kid, Thora Birch. I mean, I would put her like at a 7 between those scales.
Yeah, a 7 between the scales of just people.
So zero is
Oh, right, okay.
Northwest, and
Okay.
10 is
Okay, is Macaulay Culkin
Macaulay
and
Culkin.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah.
I haven't seen every kid actor ever, by the way, just in case you want to shout at me for not thinking
Well,
of someone
often
who's good.
child actors really bother me.
Also, Haley Steinfeld in True Grit, when she was like 11, she was very good as well. She'd maybe be like
Is
more an
she
8 or a
10?
9.
8 or 9. Where would you put Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter?
Depends which one.
Harry Potter Uno.
Maybe like 3 or 4.
Emma Watson?
I think Jake Lloyd is better in Phantom Menace than Daniel Radcliffe is in Harry Potter.
No.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Well,
I think it depends on the scene, but for the most part, I disagree.
some of the scene-to-scene stuff with Daniel Radcliffe is really bad. Like where he's...
What about, are you an angel?
Yeah, but that's bad.
What is
That's
that?
bad writing.
But
That's
it's
bad
also
writing.
bad performance. Yippee!
Yeah, that's again the writing.
But
he
he
delivers
says
that
it with-
yippee really great.
No, he says it with a straight face.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he might have a small smile.
We might be thinking of the wrong yippee because he says it a couple
That's true.
times.
I think Daniel Radcliffe is better.
What about Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter 3? Or are we not counting him as a child actor at that point?
He's still a child actor.
Okay, well that's more maybe like a 2.
But he's like, I think it has to do with direction.
Now you can't you're flipping this all around to defend Daniel Radcliffe. He's a good actor now. If you're listening, Daniel, I'm not giving you I'll give you your flowers.
I think that Daniel Radcliffe is really bad at reaction shots, but he's good at the other things.
Yeah.
Like, it's very clear in The Sorcerer's Stone when the camera cuts to him and then someone is like, now look surprised, because his face just like completely changes in a second.
Yeah.
It's just really, his reaction shots are bad, but I think that his acting besides that for a child is good.
Do you think he's better than Emma Watson in the first movie?
Yes.
Okay.
I've changed my tune on this. Perhaps 10 years ago I wouldn't have said yes, but now I just can't stand her acting. It's all eyebrows, nothing else. And she would mouth along their lines in it, and she says that like it's like, or people
Cutesy and
people
stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
people say that as if it were like a good thing.
It's unprofessional, Emma.
Yeah.
God.
Come on, 11-year-old Emma. Put your professional hat on.
Yeah.
Leave it all outside. Okay, wow. We've become completely derailed. Oh my goodness. Okay.
That
So
scale's
she's-
going to stand forever, so at least we came up with that.
So she's a decent child actor. She was asked to come back. Thora Birch. We're back to Hocus Pocus now, people. She was asked to come back for Hocus Pocus 2, but she didn't. She said because of scheduling conflicts. Who knows if that is actually the case.
What's she doing now? I've not heard of this Thora Birch.
Maybe she just watches that back and feels a bit cringe about it or something.
This is her time to reclaim the narrative. Maybe they're waiting for her to come back in Hocus Pocus 3. That'll be the big reveal.
Yeah,
And
maybe,
she turns out to actually be a witch.
Because Max isn't in it, right? And neither is
I don't think so.
his girlfriend. So Max's girlfriend, Allison, is played by Vanessa Shaw. I thought she was fine, but she looks way older than a teenager.
Yeah. No, that kid, what's his name? Max? He's
Yeah.
punching, I think.
Yeah.
He can't believe his bloody luck, I
Yeah.
think. Somehow he's managed to get this girl
Yeah.
who's way more attractive than him, interested in
Yeah.
him within like a day of meeting her. I don't even really, is it because like he talks to her about Halloween and stuff and she's like kind of like you, like more into Halloween than the average person?
Well, he's not into Halloween. He doesn't
Yeah.
bit at all. No, she's
And
just
like,
into him.
I can change him.
Yeah, he has that kind of floppy hair boy charm. Like
Yeah,
he
bit of a
reminds me a
Justin
lot.
Bieber sort of
I was
character.
thinking of like Dean from Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Dean's a bit more bro-y, I think.
I
thinking of Jess?
No.
I think it's more like Jess.
I'm talking not his personality, his look,
okay.
the floppy-haired look,
Okay.
the charming floppy-haired boy.
Floppy boy?
Yeah. Don't like that. So overall, a good cast.
Yep, I give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up from us.
What do you think of the bullies, the two bully characters?
I think they look like they're about 30.
Yeah, they're also like, I feel like they were like a real time capsule, and because, you know, it's hard to believe those people would ever be considered cool. I suppose they're not really cool in the sense that they're like popular and then they like pick on people who are like less popular. They're just kind of thuggish, but...
Yeah. I kind of liked them because they were more comedic relief, really, than feeling like an actual threat, you know?
Don't they
like,
get left to die at the end?
Apparently, okay, there was a sequel book to Hocus Pocus.
Right.
And in which those two characters, they survive. They eventually get rescued from the witch's hut. And one of them becomes a high school teacher. And one of them becomes a park ranger. And he leads like search and rescue missions because he knows how bad it can feel to be like trapped and scared.
Yeah. I like how then in that book they've acknowledged the fact that they are just left behind.
Yeah.
In some sense.
And the witches are like poking them with brooms and stuff. It's very strange.
Yeah.
But it did kind of remind me of like Hansel and Gretel, how they keep them in the cages. Mm-hmm. And also in Hansel and Gretel, the witches are eating the children. And this is a trope that I think like comes up again and again. And I didn't understand why, so I tried to do a deep dive into it. And the trope is like witches basically eating children or eating children's hearts to stay like young and beautiful forever. So it comes up obviously in Hocus Pocus, in the movie Stardust. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I love that. But in that, the witches, they eat hearts, right, to stay young forever.
I don't remember.
Or they definitely eat people and want to stay young forever.
Okay.
I think it's hearts. And then there's Hansel and Gretel, where the witch is fattening them up in cages to then eat the children.
Isn't one of the Disney things as well where like the witch wants to like stay young forever? Or
I feel like the like staying young forever, and I feel like that's a kind of like woman stereotype of like valuing vanity, or like being like above all else, your beauty and youth is like, you know, if you lose
that's
that,
the core principle.
You have nothing. There's also an old witchy character from Slavic folklore called Baba Yaga. Have you heard of Baba Yaga?
No.
So she is sometimes depicted as a nice old woman who helps the hero of the story or whatever. And then other times she is portrayed as a repulsive old woman who fries and eats children.
Specifically fries them.
And that's what the internet says. And her other distinctive characteristics are that she flies around in a wooden mortar, wielding a pestle, and she dwells deep in the forest in a hut on chicken legs.
Oh, there is some sort of children's book called Something Chicken Legs. Yeah, I just did a quick fact check, and our knowledge at Popcorn Cumin has gone full circle because I read a book probably when I was like 8 or something, maybe younger. Well, probably younger because it looks like it's like a children's picture book on some level. A book called Grandma Chicken Legs, which is by Geraldine McCaughrean, which is a retelling of the Baba Yaga story. And yeah, as you mentioned, the whole chicken legs thing, that's why I think she's called Grandma Chicken Legs. So I'd recommend that.
In that story, is she a nice old woman or does she fry and eat children?
I think she's meant to be their grandma, but then I can't actually remember if it's like the kid is scared of her because she looks scary, but she's actually nice, or she's quite rightly scared of her
because she fries and eats children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it says it's a retelling of the Baba Yaga story, but you're trying to sort of make out that there's two very different versions of the Baba Yaga story. So which one could they be retelling?
I don't think it's a folklore type thing that has been told many different times in many different ways. It's like a fairy tale that has a lot of different tellings of it.
Yeah.
So it depends on what version you're...
Okay.
I don't think there's like one original text. There might be.
Well, there rarely is, isn't it?
But yeah. So yeah, there's all these instances of witches, you know, wanting to eat children, wanting to stay young forever. And I was just trying to figure out and look into kind of why that is, why that's such a common telling. I mean, I figured the answer was probably some kind of sexism, which I think that in some ways it is, but also back when...
Oh, because it's about women wanting to stay young.
Yeah, and it could be this idea of women's kind of whole point of existence, because this is
Like obsession with children and stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
would be like to bear children, and the most horrific kind of woman would be one who, instead of wanting to create children, wants to like
No, that makes sense. I think that's good.
kill them. And when the concept of a witch is so old, and when some of these fairy tales, like even pre Hansel and Gretel, I think, but when Hansel and Gretel came out as well. What?
When was that? When did Hansel and Gretel come
like
out?
the Grimm brothers and stuff. It was was it like the 1500s?
Yeah, no, I just like the idea of like referring to the period pre Hansel and Gretel as being like, what fiction was like pre Hansel and Gretel, and then
Well, 'cause
then the Grimm brothers changed the game with Hansel and Gretel when it was released.
Yeah, well, I think maybe a lot of modern stories where the witch is eating children might have some inspiration from Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
As the like Germanic Western foray into the eating of the children. But during that time, and even prior to the, I need to look up when this came out.
Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
1812.
Oh, that's much later than I thought.
Same, which actually makes your point more valid, I think. So
Yeah, so even prior to that. And I think when they were writing it, famine was like rife within that community. That
Germany.
famine was rife in the world, let's just say. And so the idea, at least in Hansel and Gretel, even like Hansel and Gretel are basically starving, which is what drives them to the witch's house. And then I guess the idea is kind of that this being so hungry that you would revert to eating another human being, then possibly transferred into like some characters in fairy tales, like the witch in Hansel and Gretel, who is fattening them up to eat them. Although she lives in a house of candy, so she has plenty to eat. She doesn't need to eat the kiddos.
Can't sustain yourself on candy, so yeah.
That's true. Need a little protein. So, yeah, I think it has some roots in kind of being starving. And I believe it probably has some roots in what I was saying around the place of a woman as being a childbearer and what the most evil version of that could be.
Yeah, no, I think that's compelling analysis. You've just psychoanalyzed thousands of years of folklore, so good job. You don't need a thesis or anything. We just do it on the fly on the podcast.
Yeah. And gotta stay young and pretty forever, or no one will ever love you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have the choice of if you're able to live forever, like, is there an immortality tied to the eating of children as well, or is it just that they would continue to be, live a very long, everlasting life, but they just would become horribly decrepit?
In Hocus Pocus?
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure. It definitely keeps their appearances young. And I think it might also be what keeps them immortal. Because I'm guessing it also de-ages their organs that, are the things that would fail from old age.
Yeah, unless you're a witch and you're kind of like a sort of ethereal being that's not reliant on human biology in the same way,
But they are, right? That's why they have to eat the children.
Yeah, but maybe magic is coursing through their veins,
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about their mortality, I would like to bring up what I consider to be a plot hole in the movie.
Uh-oh. Close your ears, Disney.
So once we have a kind of what we think is the resolution to the story, when Max and Allison and Danny push the witches into the oven in a very Hansel and Gretel type way, or trick the witches into going into the oven, shut the door, burn them, they go up in flames. Then the crew celebrates, thinking the witches are dead. They celebrate outside. This is now the point where I have a Euan was right about something moment.
All right.
What do you think you were right
It's about
about?
time. I mean, the list is so long. Who knows where to start? Well, I remember thinking it's kind of weird that they go into like green smoke and then it just reforms. Like it just gets sucked back through the chimney that it comes out of, I think, and then they become alive again. But other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, that is weird. But what you were right about is that when Allison, Max, and Danny are dancing outside celebrating the witch's death, they're dancing by a fountain.
Okay.
Which
I still don't know what it is.
Which is the fountain used in the Friends opening.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which you said, didn't you?
I think so,
You
yeah.
said that looks like the fountain from Friends.
Oh.
And I said, well, maybe it is. It's both are, I think, the same company.
All right. Look at me. A Friends mega fan, clearly.
But yes, as you say, it's very weird that they turn into green smoke and then they're kind of just like sucked back in, and then they're just fine. Like, why don't they die when they burn them? Because they die back in 1693. They die when they're hung. It's not like they're actually immortal. But then they do a spell that allows them to then come back later. So why don't they die and then have to wait another million years for someone to light the candle?
Yeah, maybe they can't be killed on Halloween night on that specific day when they come back until daylight or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they get that full day to complete their plan.
Well, I do think that actually is the answer to the plot hole. I think, but you missed part of it. All right, so don't pat yourself on the back too much. I think it's because the black flame candle is still lit on Halloween.
You gotta blow that out.
Yeah, why didn't they just blow it out? Like, no one tried that. Just blow out the candle and then they'll go away. So I think we solved the plot hole. Loop closed.
What did you think of like the zombie character? I thought like he was kind of fun in a sense.
Billy Butcherson?
Yeah, but I feel like they kind of played up in the plot that he's actually is brought back to life by the witches, which he doesn't want that to happen. Like, he was previously killed by the witches in his actual life before he became undead, I think. I think Winifred says as much at one point. But why he does kind of try to help them on some level. That plot point like resolves itself when he gets like a knife or something to be able to cut his lips, which have been sewn together, and then he can kind of speak and voice his dissent towards the witches. But it's like, one, I feel like he could have gotten rid of those stitches with just like a sharp rock or something. Like, if he was really trying, he could have done that easier. And also, why does he have to do that in order to be able to voice his dissent and communicate, like to not like obey the witches? Because I'm pretty sure he is kind of trying to thwart the kids on some level before that.
Yeah. No, it was a very strange and sudden turnaround from like chasing them to having his arm around Max and just like leading him off. I do have some behind the scenes facts about that cutting off of the stitches on his mouth. Because when he does that, some like moths fly out. And those were actually real moths, which is kind of gross. But they basically attached a latex pocket to dentures that then blocked off the actor's throat, so the moths didn't fly down his throat. And then there was a small hole in the very back of the pocket so that he could breathe, but not big enough for a moth to fly down, obviously. And basically an animal wrangler, a moth wrangler, using tweezers, would put several moths in the pocket, like in his denture pocket, and then they would really quickly sew the mouth. It obviously wasn't his real skin, but sew it shut. They would sew it shut and then try to really quickly shoot the scene.
Before the moth maybe flew down his throat.
Yeah, or like died
All right,
in his
there's no
mouth
actual guarantee that's going to work, so we got to do this quick.
I mean, it was probably just very uncomfortable for him as well. But I would hope that was a one-take wonder for them.
I feel like my stress level in that situation would very quickly like go up very quickly, and then I'd become totally like hysteric.
Yeah, it's almost like in
hysterical
1984 the like rat mask that they put on his face.
Yeah.
But moths. And you hate moths. That would be like your worst nightmare.
Well, I kind of hate them. Like, I'm not like actually afraid of them. I just find them kind of gross. That's the problem. And speaking of things that are gross, what do you think, Sarah, about the frequent mention, and actually part of the plot is the fact that our lead character, Max, right, his name, is a virgin, and that's why it's frequently mentioned as something for him to be laughed at. Now, I believe you mentioned earlier in the podcast that the actor was 16, which, is still legally a child, and it's kind of made like he's being made fun of for being a virgin, which is just, I mean, that would be one thing. I mean, I'm not, personally offended by it. It's just kind of weird, one, for a Disney movie, but particularly for a Disney movie that's aimed at children, it seems, to have that be so focused on in the plot. So share your thoughts on that.
I hate it.
Okay, nice. There we go, tick.
I've always found it weird, the number of times they mention virgins, and what makes me feel more uncomfortable is that it's always used as like a joke of, haha, you're a virgin. When the kid is only like 16 years old, I feel like that sets certain expectations for 16-year-old boys that I don't think everyone should attempt to achieve if they're not comfortable with it.
Yeah, I feel like they could have just explained that by being like, just had it tied into the whole children aspect of it, like before you turn 18 or something, would that have broken the story in any way? Like once you turn 18, you're no longer a child, and then...
Yeah, that would have been better. Yeah, like it has to be a child because
Yeah.
they're the ones that the witches want to eat, so that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I do wonder, do you think it was because, especially, I feel like maybe in the 90s, there was like more stuff about like, oh, like the virgin sacrifice and it was always...
In the 90s?
Yeah. What am I thinking of? Like in Legally Blonde... Maybe that's all
I don't remember that
thinking
plot
of.
point in Legally Blonde.
It's part of the party they go to is that they have like a virgin sacrifice come down. Maybe it's actually No, it's a cheerleader movie. It's one of the Bring It Ons.
Okay.
But anyway, there's this idea of a virgin sacrifice, but it's always a woman. Like that's what, like, virginity is not often applied to men.
But when you say like the idea of a virgin sacrifice, do you mean the way it's done in Bring It On, or do you mean in like a cult or something where they're actually like doing a human sacrifice?
I think that the way that stuff like that, human sacrifices, but how it was like portrayed in films and in the media.
Okay. I just don't think I have that cultural understanding, or maybe it just didn't cross over to the UK in the same way. But
yeah, except in Scooby-Doo, when Scooby-Doo is in fact the racrifice. But I think that the idea of a virgin sacrifice is usually of a woman. So maybe they thought that they were subverting that by having a man.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's all tied up into sort of ideas of like purity and stuff like that.
It still makes me uncomfortable, but if that was their intention, it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, if they're trying to kind of tie it into the like witchy lore and stuff, and trying to ground it in the folklore about witches and human sacrifices and stuff, that's like one thing. But it's not like they are like actually showing the witches like being or hanged, until they're until their necks break or anything. So they clearly are making some censorship to the witchiness of it all for in the view of making it acceptable for children to watch, or at least being more palatable for them. So.
Yeah, and the little sister is always like, he's a virgin. Does she know what that means? Yeah. I did not know what that meant.
I mean, it's not
age.
It's not totally uncommon for like obviously a young child to have access to words that they wouldn't understand what they mean, or like they understand how to use them in the context but don't actually know what the phrase means because they've heard it from someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like I hope the 6-year-old didn't learn about what that might mean through having to shoot this movie,
She probably did.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that I See Dead People kid also like...
I See Dead People kid. Yeah. What's that? Haley Joel Osment.
He probably, I mean, because kids are used in horror movies and stuff all the time. That's probably somewhat traumatizing sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Some of his scenes were quite scary. So
yeah, I think that the kids from It were probably a bit traumatized. I think that what's his name freaked him out on set.
Well, Sarah, what would you say? Would you say this is the perfect Halloween movie in some sense? Because it's not too scary. There is still a little bit of kind of horror aspects to it, and the witches do pose a threat, as we discussed. But overall, it's more kind of the spooky vibes that you're looking for.
Yes. I actually came to Hocus Pocus considerably late in life. I only saw it about 5 or 6 years ago for the first time. So when I was a basically fully fledged adult. And I was just hooked. It's my perfect spooky vibes, funny witches, like a combination of humor and spooky vibes. And it's good family fun. And not to mention, the best part of the film, the Sanderson sisters' rendition of I Put a Spell on You is just iconic and amazing.
No, that is a great movie moment. You know? That definitely is the highlight for me as well. And that whole scene, like being at like the Halloween party, and the fact that it actually has some sort of relevance to the plot because she does put a spell on the adults, and that kind of helps drives the plot forward and stuff. I do think that's very well done. I
did think that the parents in Salem are really irresponsible.
And they're really into Halloween.
Which maybe is true in Salem. But first of all, how big is this town? Because they've got this whole town hall filled with like drunk parents, who is watching your children?
Yeah.
And then the other girl, Allison's parents are also hosting a kind of like bougie Halloween party. Do you remember this? Everyone's wearing wigs from kind of like revolutionary days.
Yeah. And there's that other guy who's kind of tries to start his own Halloween party.
Who?
The one that the sisters, they kind of invade his house.
Oh, the devil?
Yeah.
Oh, that is an amazing scene. First of all, why are these parents not watching their children? And second of all, there are so many parents. And third of all, why do these parents care so much about Halloween?
Yeah. I could see why, because they've just moved there, they would go out as like a social thing. Yeah. And they do get then a spell put on them, which is why they're unable to return, I think.
Yeah.
But it is weird there's no one like actually watching the children.
And it works in Max's case because he is an older brother and can look after the sister, but not everyone will have like the exact right age difference to be able to do that.
No.
Like I think it's wild. I don't think my parents have ever gone to a Halloween party. Like they stay home and hand out candy to the children. Who's handing out the candy if all the parents are at the thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I also thought it was weird that those bullies were stealing candy from literal like 6-year-olds and stuff. I mean, fair enough if that's how. I just thought that was like even if you're a proper degenerate bully, you're probably thinking, this is kind of cringy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got to be doing better things with my life than stealing candy from a 6-year-old.
Cringy.
Yeah.
He's got his nickname shaved into his hair. That's really funny. Okay, so anyway, I put a spell on you number. Amazing. And at the beginning of that, Bette Midler takes the stage and she says, "Hello, Salem. My name is Winifred. What's yours?" Which I always thought was like a bit strange, but...
Is that a reference to something?
So it's a reference to the famous line, "Hello, everybody. My name is Rose. What's yours?" spoken by Madame Rose in the musical Gypsy. And Bette Midler played Madame Rose in the television version of Gypsy in 1993, so in the same year that the film was released. So it was a nod.
Or
nod to
maybe
that.
she forgot her line and kind of just panicked. And they were like,
that's the
well, we'll
first
keep
thing
that.
that
Did you
came-
mean that, Bet? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
A little bit of speculation into the lore of Hocus Pocus. So obviously big age gap between Max and Danny. Do you think Max was a surprise or Danny was a surprise?
Well, let's see. How old do the parents look like? They're probably around. They're probably in their mid-30s.
Mid-30s.
Late 30s. 40s? Wait.
Well, he's 16.
So I think he might be the surprise.
You think? Yeah. I was at first thinking that it would be the younger sibling, because typically that would be how it would happen, but maybe that makes more sense, actually, if they are relatively young.
Well, maybe they don't look that young. Maybe the late 30s,
It's hard to tell in their
right?
makeup. Or sorry, their outfits. But they
Yeah.
are both wearing makeup, so I'm protected by that.
Her
mystique.
dressing as Madonna with those boobs, another kind of weirdly sexual thing in the movie. But I feel like some of that's kind of for the parents watching.
I feel like that's a real time capsule type of thing as well. One thing that I wanted to say is that the witches sort of adapting to modern day things is quite funny. Like they're like very scared, and then just the script and the way they're interacting with things, I did think was very funny and well done. And you probably could have had like even more of that. And I think there is more of it in Hocus Pocus 2, which I don't know if we've really talked about it that much. And we can probably do another episode on it in the future, potentially, maybe next year. But Hocus Pocus 2 was actually pretty good, I thought. And if you'd like this one, definitely recommend watching that.
Yeah, that's probably some of my favorite parts of both this and Hocus Pocus 2 are them interacting with the new world. Like when he holds the flame up to the sprinklers and then he's like, the power of like the rain, fire or something, and then they think it's acidic rain and that it's like killing them.
Yeah.
Because they're just their mind, like they can clearly feel that it's not actually burning their skin, but their minds are just so easily like influenced.
Yeah. And like they using the vacuum cleaner as the broom, that was funny. It was a funny image as well.
Yeah.
I did think the ending was very overly sentimental. Like it was going into a bit of a kind of Return of the Jedi or like Return of the King type of feeling where I'm like, this isn't like the culmination of a 3-part epic trilogy or something. This was just one movie. All right, everyone's going about they've vanquished the witches and stuff. Let's get this thing wrapped up.
Yes. And this was the second. This is an actual plot hole.
Okay.
Because Binks, at the end of the movie, he finally actually dies and the spell is lifted. And that is because the Sanderson sisters have been vanquished for good. Because in the original, when they were first hung, Binks still doesn't die. Like, the spell of him being a cat, forced to be a cat for, like, eternity, isn't lifted because the Sanderson sisters still somehow exist. But at the end of this movie, he actually dies, implying that the Sanderson sisters are gone forever.
Yeah.
But then they come back.
And I think the way you could get around that without it being a plot hole would be like, I mean, this is maybe a bit too sort of fantasy lore analytical for the kids movie that it is, but you could say that they did have this tether to the real world where the modern day world of the 300 years that have passed in the first movie because they cast that spell, which then that is the sort of tenuous link that's keeping Binks alive as the cat, whereas they could have that be broken and then come back in the second one because they're resurrected by some other sort of means, like maybe someone gets the book and they find like a resurrection spell and accidentally resurrects them. But I'm pretty sure in Hocus Pocus 2 it's just someone lights the candle again, which would imply that it's the same thing that would bring them back again.
Yeah, because doesn't some kind of teacher or something tricks these teenage girls into lighting the candle?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Because they need to be virgins. Now we're not even subverting the stereotypes.
I don't know if they talk about it, though, in the second one in the same way, I wonder. Oh. I'm surprised that would get through, like, modern-day Disney's sensibility checks, but...
I'll have to rewatch it.
Maybe when Hocus Pocus 3 comes out.
Yeah, but I do agree with you about the ending being a quick shift in tone to being, like, very sentimental. And even prior to that, I thought that the climax of the movie was just very kind of weird and chaotic when there's just kind of people like flying this way and that. I don't know if you remember it, but it's very strange. And then she kind of sucks out his soul like a Dementor.
Yeah.
Or starts sucking his soul like a Dementor, which, yeah, it was a bit strange.
And there's the whole thing that they can't step on like hallowed ground. Then she does step on it for a little bit, but then she does die.
Yeah, I think that you were right, because when she steps on the ground, she turns into a stone because of that law. And then she explodes because the sun comes up. That makes sense. 2
executions.
Yeah. Apparently they made like 6 versions of that statue of her. I don't really know why. Oh, maybe because they blew it up.
6
Did they
takes.
actually blow it up? It didn't really look like a practical effect. Would you like to hear a little bit more trivia?
Yeah.
So going back to the start, going back to the Salem witch trials, Sarah Jessica Parker.
She was there.
She was there. She was actually a witch and is still alive today.
Oh my God.
No, but her ancestor, so she found out on a family history show called Who Do You Think You Are? I don't know what that is, but she researched her family history, and her 10th great-grandmother, Esther Elwell, was arrested in Salem for committing sundry acts of witchcraft in the late 1600s. So she was accused of choking a neighbor to death using witchcraft, and Esther's case never ended up going to court. I think that maybe at that time the witch trials were wrapping up or something, so she just kind of got
no
off.
more budget.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's interesting that she's actually a descendant of
a witch, maybe
an accused witch. And apparently Sarah Jessica Parker said that it has changed everything about who I thought I was. I don't really know why that would be the case, but maybe now she thinks she's a witch.
The one thing I would say with that is that presumably the person that her ancestor was suspected to have killed was actually killed. So do you think that she did kill this person, just not through witchcraft? Or do you think the person who killed this person accused her to try and capitalize on the witch hunt movement as a kind of way of
yeah, that could be. Unless the neighbor just like choked on a piece of meat and that was the choking to death.
Yeah. I wonder when is it paleontology? No, that's dinosaurs. It's something like that. This being able to like tell people's time of death and things like that, being able to actually accurately to some extent.
Forensics?
Well, forensics is more like analysing like the crime scene. I'm talking more about like body analysis.
The coronation of the body.
Anthropology. No. Forensic anthropology.
Yeah.
Forensic pathologist. What did I say? Paleontology. Oh dear. Pathology is what I was thinking of. Yeah, so I wonder when that was developed for people to be able to actually, somewhat.
But they don't need that kind of evidence because they have spectral evidence.
That's true.
That is the most firm type of evidence.
Maybe pathology replaced spectral evidence.
Yeah.
I wonder if some people were against that.
All right, next little bit of trivia is the role of Max Edison was originally offered to Leonardo DiCaprio, but he turned it down to instead star in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which I have not seen.
It's good. It's pretty good. It's him and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp plays Gilbert Grape, who is looking after both his mother, who is, I think she has some sort of disability, and Leonardo DiCaprio, who is, I think, special needs of some sort. So
yes, but he could have played a virgin lighting a candle in Hocus Pocus.
That's true. Although I would say potentially he would feel justified in his decision, because I think he was nominated for an Oscar for that role and has since gone on to be a very big movie star. And this other guy, it sounds like, almost got fired from Hocus Pocus for smoking weed, so
whatever. There is a scene in Hocus Pocus where Sarah Sanderson kind of randomly just eats a spider.
Is that a real spider?
Now, Sarah Jessica Parker said apparently on the 25th anniversary Halloween bash for Hocus Pocus, she says that she actually ate a spider.
I'm starting to think her ancestor probably was a witch.
Yeah.
And she is also a witch. No one should be eating a spider.
The spectral evidence is lining up here. Another fun fact, it's not that fun to be honest, but you'll probably find it interesting, is Hocus Pocus was released the same year as The Nightmare Before Christmas. The Nightmare Before Christmas was releasing during the Halloween season. Because why? Because it is a Halloween film. Evidence.
It sounds like something changed. Maybe they did a critical analysis of it. When did they release it, Sarah?
Well, Nightmare Before Christmas was released during Halloween.
Oh, I thought you were building up to say that they then changed it so they could release Hocus Pocus.
No. It was you think Nightmare Before Christmas is going to move? No, Hocus Pocus moved their release to be in July, so to be a bit earlier. Which also allowed kiddos on summer vacation to freely be able to go to the cinema and watch it. But more than anything, this provides evidence that The Nightmare Before Christmas is a Halloween movie.
Yeah, well, the problem with this, Sarah, is that actually a lot of the time horror movies don't release in October. They release either in September or in like January or February. So
Well, it just says the Halloween release.
I've softened on my stance about Nightmare on Christmas being a Christmas movie. Did I say Nightmare on Christmas? Nightmare Before Christmas. If it was Nightmare on Christmas, then maybe it would be a Christmas movie. But the before adds more kind of layers of separation to the event.
We start in Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely Christmassy themes to it, but the vibe probably overall is more spooky. So I just think people should be allowed to enjoy things however they want,
Sure. So Disney actually bought the script for this long before it was made. They bought it in 1984, and it was originally going to be called Disney's Halloween House, and it was supposed to be much darker and scarier.
Really?
Yeah. Which kind of sounds like it kind of sounds similar to like Haunted Mansion or something.
Oh, like the ride? Or
well,
the
yeah,
movie,
which was then
the
turned
Eddie
into
Murphy.
a movie.
Yeah. I don't really remember either. Like, I feel like those were kind of similar in tone to
That's
this as
true.
well. It's just Disney's Halloween House makes it sound like it's some sort of like Mickey Mouse show, I think.
Yeah, like Mickey's Clubhouse, Mouse's
that's maybe what I'm thinking
Clubhouse.
of, yeah.
So there were apparently also rumors that Disney considered turning it into a made-for-TV movie, but these rumors have not been confirmed by anyone, so they're just rumors.
Who's going to answer to these rumors?
Nobody. Going back to the virgin comment, a lot of people think this is the first Disney movie to mention virgins, but apparently in 1981, the movie Dragon Slayer mentions virgins, which I have not seen. Have you seen?
I know, I haven't even heard of that.
No, what is that? So Hocus Pocus was originally pitched to Steven Spielberg, but he turned it down because he saw Disney as his biggest competitor and he had no intention on working with Disney. But then in a few years he collaborated with Disney.
This came out in 1993. I feel like Spielberg was busy making about 3 masterpieces at that time, so I'm not surprised he turned it down.
I think that you were downplaying the masterpiece of Hocus Pocus.
Just for the record, in 1993, Steven Spielberg released both Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, which are probably
but if
two
they
of the
were
most amazing movies
released
ever,
in
so.
1993, it's not like he was busy making them then.
Well, this also released in 1993.
You're right. I take it back.
Sorry, guys, I got to turn down Hocus Pocus to make Jurassic Park. Hope you'll forgive me.
It should be the other way around. I mean, there's 3 Jurassic Parks. He had another chance for that one. Oh, there's another Hocus Pocus now. But at the time. And we have reached our final piece of trivia, which I should not have saved for last because it's really not that exciting. But it is if you like animals.
We'll dress it up. Who doesn't like animals?
Yeah.
Witches, maybe.
Maybe we should have a whole section for just animal facts.
But we've only got one, so... maybe doesn't necessitate a section.
But sometimes we have other animal facts. No, we had two. We had the moths.
Oh,
There was an animal handler for the moths. So due to the length of the film and variety of tricks that had to be performed, Binks the cat was played by several different cats along with CGI. And cats were chosen for scenes based on their specific personalities and skills, which is fun. You know, we think this cat has
could
the
one
right...
of them talk?
On their spotlight page, it says like accents in American English. Yeah, so for example, in the scene where Binks kind of like, you know, he kind of jumps on them to try to stop them from lighting the candle. That was apparently used by having one handler handle Binks's actor cat on one side. And then there was like in Max's pocket, there was some sort of buzzing, like buzzer, that would then call the cat to like pounce on him.
Almost like a sort of spell.
Yeah. I mean, cats are easily put under spell. Like, have you seen cats chasing lasers? Those things can easily mind controlled. Maybe that's why they're so frequently depicted with witches. That's my last piece of trivia.
Well, I think Hocus Pocus might be the movie that me and Sarah have watched together the most, potentially now, because I feel like we've watched it together 3 or 4 times, and I don't think anything else would come close to that.
Harry Potter?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you were to add up all the Harry Potters, that would certainly be...
But even...
Yeah, rewatches of maybe like Prisoner of Azkaban, maybe.
Yeah.
Because every Halloween you just shove it on.
It is close, though. When we have watched Halloween Town almost every Halloween.
Yeah.
When I can make you agree to watch it with me.
I'm always up for watching Halloween Town, just not always up for finishing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to those of you who voted for Halloween Town. You know what? Just stick around for next year, because I still want to talk about Halloween Town, so...
Yeah. What about for the people who voted for The Addams Family or Sleepy Hollow? Do they get a shout out?
They do. I appreciate your opinions. And I would have really loved to talk about both of those movies. So everyone's opinion is valid. Aww.
Yeah. Not as much as ours, but...
And with that, we hope that you have a spooky and fun Halloween with lots of hocus and lots of pocus and lots of popcorn.
Yeah. 5 bags full.
Yes, 5 bags fuel.